Welcome, my fellow nightmares, to a realm where the digital and the damned collide, where the veil between our world and the spectral plane thins to the point of shattering. Tonight we journey into the terrifying abyss of haunted VR games, where fear is not a suggestion but a guarantee. These aren't just pixels flashing on a screen. These are gateways into realms of unimaginable horror, where the entities trapped within are desperate to escape. They yearn for you, for your world, and they'll use the very technology meant to entertain to ensnare your soul. Prepare yourselves, dear viewers, as we delve into 3 spine-chilling tales of virtual reality gone horribly wrong. Stories that will leave you questioning the line between the digital and the damned, the real and the unreal. Tonight we confront the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of technology. Tonight we face the haunted VR games. Our first descent into digital terror takes us to the crumbling edifice of Cranbrook Mental Asylum, a VR horror game infamous for its realism and unsettling history. Players whispered of encountering more than just programmed jump scares within its decaying walls. They spoke of genuine dread, of a cold presence that lingered even after they removed their headsets. The game itself is a chilling exploration of the asylum's gruesome past. You, the player, are challenged to uncover the truth behind a series of unexplained patient deaths, all while navigating the labyrinthine corridors and confronting the tormented souls that still roam its halls. One fateful evening, a young man named Alex decided to brave the digital halls of Cranbrook. He'd heard the rumors, of course, but dismissed them as mere hype, eager to experience the game's acclaimed immersive horror. As he donned the VR headset, a shiver ran down his spine, a prickling sensation he attributed to anticipation, or so he thought. From the moment Alex stepped into the virtual asylum, an oppressive atmosphere enveloped him. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the distant echoes of screams. As he explored the dilapidated cells and treatment rooms, he began to notice strange occurrences, glitches in the game's code that seemed all too real. Objects moved on their own, shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, and a feeling of being watched intensified with each passing moment. Then there were the whispers. Soft, guttural voices seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, whispering his name, taunting him, urging him deeper into the asylum's depths. Driven by a morbid curiosity, Alex ventured further into the virtual nightmare. He reached the asylum's infamous solitary confinement wing, a place where the most dangerous patients were kept under lock and key. As he approached the first cell, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and a cold, ethereal wind seemed to whip through the virtual world. Suddenly, the cell door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure huddled in the corner. Alex froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He just knew that this was no ordinary game character. This was something else, something that wasn't supposed to be there. The figure slowly rose, its form shifting and flickering like a candle in the wind. 2 eyes, glowing an eerie red, pierced through the darkness, locking onto Alex with an intensity that sent chills down his spine. Terror gripped him, rooting him to the spot. As the figure began to shamble towards him, its skeletal fingers reaching out, grasping for him with an almost palpable hunger. Alex tore off the VR headset, his heart racing, his breath ragged. He stumbled back, collapsing onto his bed, the image of the red-eyed figure seared into his mind. He had crossed a line, he realized, a line between the game and something far more sinister. Our next tale of VR terror takes us from the confines of a digital asylum to the sprawling darkness of Blackwood Forest, a survival horror game shrouded in mystery and steeped in local legend. The game's premise was simple: survive the night in the forest, evading the malevolent entity that stalked its shadowed paths. But for some players, the horror of Blackwood Forest extended far beyond the game's intended scares. Sarah, an avid horror game enthusiast, was immediately drawn to the eerie allure of Blackwood Forest. The game's developers had gone to great lengths to create a truly immersive experience, using binaural audio and stunning visuals to transport players into the heart of the cursed woods. Little did Sarah know she was about to get more immersion than she bargained for. As darkness descended upon the virtual forest, Sarah found herself surrounded by towering trees, their branches twisting and gnarled like skeletal claws reaching for the twilight sky. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves underfoot and the distant cry of an owl. Armed with only a flashlight and her wits, Sarah cautiously made her way through the undergrowth. The game's atmosphere was incredibly effective, even for a seasoned horror fan like herself. Every creak of a branch, every rustle in the undergrowth sent shivers down her spine. As the night wore on, Sarah began to notice strange occurrences. The trees seemed to press in closer, their branches reaching out as if trying to ensnare her. The forest itself seemed to be alive, pulsating with a dark energy that sent a primal fear coursing through her veins. Then she heard it, a low growl, guttural and menacing, echoing through the trees. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate in her very bones, a sound that spoke of something ancient and evil. Panic welled up inside her as she realized she was being hunted. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest, the growl growing louder with each passing moment. She could feel its presence closing in, a palpable darkness that seemed to suck the very air from her lungs. Suddenly her flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into absolute darkness. Terror gripped her as she fumbled for her phone, her only source of light in the real world. But as she reached for it, she felt a cold, clammy hand close around her wrist. A blood-curdling scream escaped her lips as she was yanked backwards, pulled into the darkness, the horrifying growl echoing in her ears. She thrashed and kicked, desperate to break free, but the grip on her wrist was too strong. Then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The hand released its grip, and Sarah collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath, her entire body trembling. She scrambled back, her eyes wide with terror, but there was nothing there. She was alone. Chapter 3. The Possessed Dollhouse. Our final and perhaps most disturbing tale centers around a seemingly innocent VR game known as the Dollhouse. This wasn't your typical horror game. It preyed on the deepest recesses of the human psyche. Players explored a Victorian dollhouse, uncovering its secrets and the tragic history of its former inhabitants. But the dollhouse was far from abandoned. Mark, a skeptic, dismissed the rumors of nightmares and hallucinations as mere psychosomatic reactions. He would soon regret his skepticism. From the moment Mark donned the VR headset, an unsettling feeling washed over him. The air was thick with dust and decay, broken only by his footsteps on creaking floorboards. The dollhouse was eerily detailed, each room meticulously crafted. There was a nursery with a rocking horse and a crib with a porcelain doll, a dining room set for a meal, and a parlor with a dusty grand piano. As Mark explored, he noticed unsettling details. The doll's eyes seemed to follow him, their smiles sinister. The rocking horse swayed, and the lullaby distorted into a discordant melody. Then there were the whispers. Soft, childlike voices whispered his name, giggling and begging him to play. The whispers grew louder, drowning out all other sounds. He tried to leave, but something held him there. It was as if the dollhouse itself had a hold of him. He was trapped. The whispers turned to screams, the dolls' faces contorted with rage. The rocking horse rocked violently, the lullaby driving Mark to madness. He screamed, ripping off the headset, but the nightmare didn't end. The whispers followed him, the distorted lullaby still playing in his mind. He couldn't escape. The dollhouse had followed him home. Mark's experience was not isolated. Countless others reported similar occurrences, driven to madness by the game. The game was pulled from circulation, its developers disappearing without a trace. The digital world, much like our own, holds shadows where evil can fester. These haunted VR games, whether glitches in the code or something more sinister, serve as chilling reminders that the things we fear the most often lurk just beyond the veil of reality. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey through haunted VR games. Remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes open. The digital darkness is always watching. Sweet dreams, or should I say nightmares.